So you get dice rolling, you get an updated spin, literally, on spinning wheel mechanisms. You have freaking roll and writes in this game. There are just so many intertwined board game mechanisms that have come into play into Merchant's Cove, and that was what first drew me into this game. And I've been dying to talk about it ever since it was on my top 10 list for 2021. But I wanted to experience every single class first before making a full comprehensive review like today. So with that said, hello everyone, welcome back to the Wolfpack. I'm going to give you a quick, brief, as usual, 1 minute rundown of how this game works, and then doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to talk about the characters and review them as we go. So it's not just the bulk of information and then thoughts. We're going to switch it up a little bit today. Okay, now, first off, Merchant's Cove is a pick up and deliver game. If you don't know what that is, it just means that you're making things and then delivering them in order to make money at a certain part of the game. Some games, they have like different locations. Here, everyone has just one set location, but there are 3 different spots where you're gonna sell these goods to. Now, everyone has a character miniature that they're going to place on different parts of their board. When they do that, it's going to cost time. Time is the literal cost for progressing the rounds in this game. So for instance, if I were to place the blacksmith here, it would cost time, and you would move the gear marker clockwise in the clock. And then if you pass this little meeple marker, it means you're going to be loading the boats. We'll come back to that in a second. So after you pay time, you're then going to perform that action. Everyone has their very own specific actions, but the ultimate goal for everybody is to generate goods and make the most amount of money. And what's really dynamic about this game in terms of like turn order is that it's not always just this person goes and then this person goes next. No, it depends on the weight of your actions. So if your actions take 2 time and someone else's only costs 1 time, then they're gonna go twice. And this kind of pacing for who's first and who's second, who's third, and so on, it changes depending on where you are on the clock. So whoever is in last place in the clock, that's the person that has priority until they catch up with everybody else. It's a really fascinating catch-up mechanic. Now, as your player marker passes these meeple markers on the clock, you're going to load the boats. That just means you're gonna be drawing from this bag a random meeple, random merchant, and they're going to be loaded on any boat that you choose. And once a boat is fully loaded, they're going to be docked here. And that matters because the colors, there are 4 colors in this game, yellow being like the rarest and red being the most common. So it goes yellow, blue, green, red. These colors are going to act as multipliers. So for instance, if I were to make a yellow weapon with my blacksmith and there are 2 nobles here on the dock, that's going to amplify how much money that I've made with my weapon. So if my yellow sword is worth 8 gold and I have 2 nobles on the dock, 8 times 2, that would be 16. And you continue from there. So you sell only large goods here, you sell only small goods in the middle, and then you can have an option to sell both small and large at the very end. The downside to that is that you're actually going to be drawing corruption cards if you were to sell in the black market at the very last dock, because it has that hybrid choice of choosing whether to sell large or small. Corruption cards are bad. They are going to take away gold from you at the very end of the game. You don't want them at all, and there are ways for you to get rid of them depending on the character that you play with. And lastly, the boats that haven't docked, those merchants are going to go straight to different homes here on the bottom half of the board, and those are going to activate sponsorships. Every merchant has their own unique way of unlocking sponsorships. So deciding when to sell your goods, like are you going to stockpile all the large ones and wait for a really big multiplier, or are you going to sell a little bit at a time? Deciding where to sell them to, and then adapting to the color changes because other players are going to place their merchants that they draw from this random bag into their own boats in order to prioritize themselves or to deprioritize yours. So you see how all these layers put together, like it's so flippin' fascinating. That's why it makes me incredibly excited to play this game. And then lastly, you can also hire staff. The staff that you hire, get this, is going to activate a one-time effect when you hire them, and then they're going to unlock new abilities for your player board, and then it's going to create this ongoing, growing engine builder effect, because every time you activate staff, you actually activate all of them. That's pretty much how your game works. Perform an action, that's going to cost time. As time progresses and enough boats are filled up, then you start selling them to each individual dock, and you just continue for 3 rounds total. And the most gold by the end of the game will win. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into one of my favorite characters to play, the blacksmith.
Light a match, let it go.
Ooh, one of my favorite characters to play, and this merchant is all about dice management. Okay, the blacksmith's goal is to use a pool of dice and slot in the larger numbers to make weapons and the lower numbers to make armor. You can unlock sponsorships by removing one of these alloy dice that'll add to your overall pool of dice. And the most fun part for me by far is forging, because once you fully load up your forge, what's really fun about the blacksmith is being able to forge everything at once. Okay, this gets 10 times more fun when all the boats are fully loaded and you just make all of your goods ready to sell according to the most abundant colors on the docks. Honestly, I just love how this element of randomness is important, but it's not detrimental to the gameplay because you can always utilize your dice towards some kind of item. Overall, his engine is just really satisfying to build up and it's very combo inducive, being able to hire more workers to further adjust your dice, bypass steps to automatically load alloy dice, and even do double forging. He is just an incredible entry class to Merchant's Cove and will get you hooked to the game.
Number 2, now instead of rolling dice, you'll be grabbing these cascading marbles from 3 different rows. The alchemist is all about brewing potions and balancing out when she can get rid of these black marbles called ichor from this pot over here, because if it overboils, it's going to cause her to draw corruption. You can brew different sized potions and unlock sponsorships by turning in these marbles at the very bottom. The alchemist is fun because you're trying to strategize which marbles land in which spot and how to maximize those, because in each row, when you gather one, you're going to gather all that type as they fall down. So if I say red and I gather this marble and the next one falls down and it's also red, I'll take that one too, including black ones, which are also ichor. These act as a wild. For me, I think the alchemist was the least interesting, but I get why she's here because like the blacksmith, they both serve like that entryway class that makes it easy to learn. Like once you pass the honeymoon phase of how crazily good this production value is behind Merchant's Cove, the alchemist thematically is cool. I just feel like she's missing one or two more different actions other than just gather ingredients, make a potion, and then get rid of the ichor when she can in order for her to not overboil. I totally get why she's here. Thematically, still really cool. Gathering ingredients, brewing potions, and getting rid of these black ichor before they overboil. But I just was missing a little bit more depth. However, I feel like the complexity of characters really expands as you go past the alchemist. So that satiation for complexity is going to get resolved with the other characters that I'm going to talk about right now. Okay, for number 3, we are going to play with time. So time is how progress is measured in this game. What if you can freeze it? Introducing the chronomancer. The blacksmith and the alchemist both benefit from building up their resource pools and then bam, forging or brewing all their items at once. However, the chronomancer plays distinctly from that. He has an assistant that he can't move past, and he and his assistant use worker and tile placement in order to drop in at different timelines and gather relics. But once they drop into this time machine, they gain these expendable time tokens in order to give them extra actions. So it'll literally freeze time, allowing them to take extra turns, collect more relics, and even score immediate sponsorship points. Their staff actions are actually machine upgrades that'll let you convert different colored relics, make them bigger, or even split them into 2. I just love how he ties in the theme of the game so well with actually being able to freeze time and take extra turns, jumping into different portals in order to gather these relics in the past or in the future. And it's also really interesting how the way he upgrades his items or the way he upgrades his actions, they're not by generating more things, but rather taking away the bad effects. So for him, if you upgrade the white tile to the blue tile side, it'll actually cost less time for him to perform. So then he can perform more actions more often. Now the final character in the base set is the captain. Now what's really cool about the captain is that they've actually modernized, in a way, the spinning dial mechanic from like classic board games. So here, when you spin the dial, it's going to cause the captain to move a different number of spaces and also deposit coins onto this island. When you play the captain, it is a pick up and deliver game on top of a pick up and deliver game. So the captain will be able to use his compass and spin it in order to generate a different number of movement points. Reason why that's important is because you can then take your ships and move them around the ocean blue and then discover new treasures from the different islands. But if they don't reach those islands in time before you have to load the boats, then they can also fish for food as well. Now, just like the alchemist and trying to be wary of how much ichor you have so you don't boil over, the captain has silver coins in this island, and you don't want to go over the amount of coins here because they have 7 total. If you go over 7, then you'll draw corruption. Captain for me definitely is one of the more challenging characters to play and understand because you're really striving to move your ships, but you have a limited amount of movement points. It's hard for you to adapt to the merchants that are coming onto the docks because you don't know which treasures that you're going to discover. So there's a choice and a trade-off that you have to make between fishing for these smaller seafood items or leaving your ships onto different sponsorships, maybe towards the end of the game, while also turning in silver coins pretty frequently because they actually score you gold immediately. I can definitely see why the captain is a little bit frustrating for others to play because there is this randomization in the wheel, but hiring a crew does help with movement and getting silver coins and fishing. But for me, that frustration was offset by the fleet that you're controlling, and it's really cool to be able to control like 4 different ships. And it's a little bit offset too by the staff that you hire too, because instead of having just one movement point, if you hire staff, you can actually move twice. A little bit better, and then they can also fish and generate silver coins and get rid of corruption all at the same time. So with that, the captain definitely would not recommend for new players, but is a really fun challenge for more experienced players to play with. Okay, what do we have so far? We got dice rolling, we got marble collecting, cascading, we have worker and tile placement, and the one we just covered with the captain, an updated spin, literally, on the spinning mechanic. Now, next up for the first expansion is the Dragon Rancher. If you like Animal Crossing or like social simulation games, I think you would really love the Dragon Rancher. Okay, the Dragon Rancher actually starts out with this mountain, this pyramid of poop that she has to scoop out, literally, because these actually block the spaces of where you can lay down food. And she also has trees in this ranch that she has to cut down in order for her to unlock sponsorships. You don't necessarily have to do that all right away, but once you do, it's pretty much free game for unlocking some explosive combos. But those do get put in check. Let me explain. So when she uses this action over here, she can actually pick out different types of food from this bag. Now these food tokens you lay out kind of like Moncala style, so like 1 per slot, and they can eventually loop around if you make a loop of 5. But you can replace those food tokens with a dragon. So for instance, if I have a red dragon, the small red dragon, I can replace that with this food, and then that red dragon is going to eat other red food. So when it does that, it's actually going to grow into a large dragon. And the Dragon Rancher is the only character, the only class in the entire game that has mega items, in this case, a mega dragon. Like for instance, the mega yellow dragon is worth 12 points. Imagine that multiplied by 3 nobles. That's 36 points with just 1 item. Not an item, a pet. So when these dragons evolve with each food token, you can actually put them into the ranch, and when you do that, and when you put them up to sell, then they're actually going to poop on the spot that they were just on. What's also really cool about the Dragon Rancher is that she can adapt to changing conditions in the market. So let's say you're playing a 2-player game, and there's an instance where the other player draws 2 more workers, docks a boat, and you don't anticipate the colors coming out. Let's say there are 2 yellows. Well, she can actually take 1 action to lay out food. Hopefully she gets some yellow food or white food, lays them out, and then 1 more action afterwards in order to hatch those dragons, and then boom, she has yellow dragons in order to turn in and sell to those nobles that just popped up on the dock. So I love that about her, and she can be explosive if left unchecked, but the downside to her, which like the part that tones her down, is that each dragon is going to poop. And that's a bad thing for her because she has difficult time getting rid of corruption. And you get corruption if you don't take care of these poop. If you can't lay down any more poop tokens, how many times have I said poop in like this one review? Anytime she can't lay these down, it's going to be corruption. And the only way she can get rid of corruption is by hiring staff. And she can only get rid of 1 corruption at a time. Bottom line, I can easily see her appeal to a ton of people because like who doesn't want to own a giant ranch of dragons? Come on. The innkeeper, not even gonna lie, may have the most adorable little components. Like they're gonna take the merchants from the ships, from the docks, and they're gonna place them in their little beds and score points. Beep, look at that. Here's how the innkeeper works. He makes 0 large goods. Instead, after everyone docks during the market phase, they're going to take the most common type of meeple shown. Like for instance, we'll use yellow again as an example. If yellow was the most common one, they're gonna take that and put them in their corresponding bed and score points depending on which person came to the inn to rest. So there are actually actions for you to make beds. They can turn beds around in order to change their colors. They can also pour drinks, which is his way of generating a lot of little points at a time. And then once guests have slept overnight, they can also rest here as a loyal customer, and they're going to generate even more points. The downside is that if your bed doesn't match, they're going to go into the middle here and cause a brawl. They're going to fight each other because they don't have their respective beds. And with that, you're going to be drawing corruption for every single meeple, every single merchant that is in a brawl in the center. The innkeeper starts off slow. What's unique about the innkeeper, aside from not being able to generate large goods, is that they have like this passive income, because with every turn, they're going to score more and more points. The more loyal customers they have, the more points they score by the end of the game. The staff of the innkeeper are also extremely beneficial, allowing you to convert beds, get rid of people fighting with a bouncer, adding to passive income, and scoring sponsorships immediately. And there's even a security guard to get rid of corruption as well. Whoever playing the innkeeper is definitely someone you want to keep an eye on, but not much you can do about it anyway, and we'll talk more about that in the comprehensive review. Okay, here we are at our final character, definitely the most complicated character to play. The Oracle, get this, has 5 different items. And with these items, there's a split tray in the middle. She's going to take those and roll them. And depending on the side that they fall in, that's going to dictate the actions that you can take for your turn. Honestly, like the creativity behind this is wild. Like, how do you even think of that? It's so cool. The Oracle is your roll and write character. Let's say in one half, you got a bone and a die. That's gonna allow you to star chart. That means that you'll be drawing and connecting lines, and depending on how big your square is, you'll be able to score small and large relics. She can also tell horoscopes going from 1, 2, 3, 4, and for every single slot that she uses, it's going to generate whatever action that's listed above that. Being an Oracle, she's of course going to be able to predict the future. So here, if the color that you predict matches the color that a person draws from loading the boats, then you're going to score relics as well. Her mystical orb, aka the Twisting Fates, is going to allow her to manipulate different things like the number of the die. And when she gains the ability to draw X's or market phase icons, she can put them here in order to unlock sponsorships either immediately or during the market phase. Now, clearly the Oracle has a ton of things going on. If you compare her to the Alchemist, there are way more actions available here than for the Alchemist. That's why I feel like it's a great thing that there's this range of complexity that is incorporated into the game. You can either have simple characters performing like 1 or 2 actions, all the way to the Oracle having a plethora of actions on her board. One other thing I really enjoyed about playing the Oracle is her divination area. I found it really exciting to see what people would draw, because then if it matches what you predict, then it's going to, of course, score you way more points, and it's just really fun. Having that one element of surprise really made the Oracle fun to play, but she doesn't depend just on that. But having that factor there definitely makes her exciting to play. And with that, we've covered every single class. Okay, since I've also played through solo mode, I definitely want to talk about the Peddler real quick. Now, the Peddler works by drawing cards, and these 2 cards in the middle, similar to the chronomancer, you use only the actions displayed in the center, so you can kind of predict what's going to happen next. The majority of the AI actions is producing a good, which they will store at the very top here. And they also will be drawing different merchants from the boats that will be listed on the bottom here. And the last main action that the AI can score is an immediate sponsorship. There's also a hard mode where you sub out 4 cards, and this is going to allow the peddler in order to hire more staff members and even produce 2 goods at once. All right, finally, let's go ahead and talk about this game overall. Now, with solo mode, I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. There definitely is a lot of variability in the cards that you draw, and it is interesting that you're able to anticipate half of the actions that the AI is going to be doing next. How different merchants are prioritized as the peddler loads the boats. It still hires different merchants. It replenishes the cards. There is a lot of variability, and you are trying to maximize your efficiency in your own character in response to how fast the AI builds. So it's fun, but I just think Merchant's Cove overall isn't a game that I would buy or bring out and play solo, because I miss that player interaction, especially when I'm trying to figure out what other players are building, when they have that element of sabotage as they're trying to figure out which boats to load so I don't actually score. I miss those elements. And with the AI, you're mostly trying to score your highest score, which is the whole point of the game overall anyway. But I think that's just the nature of the game overall. I think the AI mode is done really well. And if you like, comparing your efficiencies between an AI and you, if you want to score higher than them, then this is going to be a fantastic game for that. Now, in terms of Merchant's Cove overall, though, one of the biggest highlights for me is just how creative and ambitious this game is. Like, I don't know from my own experience, I do not know any other game that brings in so many unique mechanics and takes asymmetry to a whole different level. Like you have dice rolling, you have rolling rights, you have freaking predicting the future and commanding a fleet of ships with a spinner dial. Like all of those actions separate, but then it all ties in together and we're still playing this one pick up and deliver game. That's what really makes this game for me. It's just so ambitious and I love the immense amount of creativity that went behind making a game like this. Now, number 2, to add on to that point a little bit, the asymmetry, like I said, is just wild here. So when you think of asymmetry, you think of different player abilities, you think of maybe unique goals, different ways to approach the game. But here, it's like you have completely different mechanics, yet they are all seamlessly integrated together because, like I said, everyone's still playing the same game while playing their own mini game. That's one like up and down to it too. Like I do like how the solitaire that you're playing is really enjoyable, but I still miss that player interaction. Like the interplay is fun, and what I mean by that is you're still gathering from a constantly changing river of cards, the staff that you're hiring from the middle of the board. You're still trying to figure out how to adapt your strategies as people are allocating their merchants to different ships and when they get docked at different times. You're also adjusting to everyone taking a different amount of turns because everyone is spending a different amount of time in order to take their actions. So all of that interplay, really fun, but the play interaction that I'm missing is like how you can actually interact with other merchants, because when I think of Merchant's Cove, or at least especially from the artwork and just the themes and everything laid out here, you think of like a bustling market. You think of all this rowdiness from all these merchants bringing in their own goods and selling them at a huge, outdoor market. Especially with the whole innkeeper having like a brawl, right? So with that rowdiness, I feel like there should have been more interaction between merchants. I wish there was like honestly, this is still fixable because for everyone that enjoys a solitaire type game, for everyone that enjoys playing this game without sabotaging other players, that's totally fine. I feel like you can still adjust it by adding in like one card. One card is going to give every single merchant a unique ability. Like for instance, the blacksmith can maybe burn a relic from another player, or the alchemist can lay out one of her icores and another player, and that icore is going to block an action for a phase. Or maybe the chronomancer is going to freeze another player's actions for a round or two. Something like that. Like those are just wild ideas I'm coming up with as I'm going right now. But something along those lines I feel like would have been super, super fun. Like maybe the captain can reserve one entire ship for herself only to sell to. Like you can clearly see what other people are building towards. If someone is building only blue goods and they have like a blue ship and the captain can just take that in for herself, like things like that would have made this game a step further in the direction that I would have really enjoyed playing. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you would have liked to see too. Am I the only one who wants more player interaction in this game? Let me know. And the last point I wanted to mention is from all the games that we played, the scoring here is so unpredictable, and it's a great thing for this game because the person who's in last can quickly come up first. Like if they're playing as the innkeeper, they're gonna score a bunch of points, or like the dragon rancher, they're gonna just leap up miles ahead of other people in one round. And I love the unpredictability and the variability in the scoring system for that, because the multipliers that you have from all the merchants at the docks and everyone's abilities and their ways to produce relics and items for that, combined with the multipliers and the sponsorships and curse tokens taking away some of that gold at the very end, it makes it incredibly fun. I love the scoring system in this game because it's just blown out, and the multipliers honestly are really, really fun. Those are my thoughts about Merchant's Cove, and my final rating for this game is a 4 out of 5. This game takes creativity to the next level. Each character really tailors to a totally different playstyle while bringing everyone back in to a pick up and deliver game. The asymmetry really is such a huge highlight in this game, with every merchant bringing a totally different perspective to the game. It's fun adjusting to everyone allocating merchants to different ships, gathering from a common staff pool that changes constantly. The turns are erratic because sometimes you can take multiple turns if you're last, or if you take a big turn, it'll cost you. And I just really enjoyed seeing the end game slowly develop by watching sponsorships grow on the board. There definitely is a lot going on, but it's not messy and it's really fun overall. The one thing missing for me is true player interaction. Like again, you can be conniving and allocate your workers at different spots and have small little things that interrupt gameplay, but for the most part, it is a solitary game. Not totally bad thing. Again, like I love this game, that's why it was on my top 10 list for a reason. So I don't mind the solitaire, but I do miss that full play interaction of being able to sabotage other players and ruining their plans, ruining their goods essentially. And lastly, the scoring, it being unpredictable and being drastic. I absolutely love it because the multiplier really changes the state of the game throughout every single round. And with that, those are my thoughts about this incredible game called Merchant's Cove and all of its expansions. I haven't played through the secret stash just yet, but it does add in like different size ships. Like there was a boat I saw with 2 people that can be slotted in. There was one that had 5, and there's just a whole other set of modules that one adds. I feel like it's great on its own. I definitely wouldn't recommend buying all the expansions for this game unless you've tried the core game first. I feel like this is a game where you either love it with all the asymmetry or you absolutely hate it. I don't think this is the type of game where like, it's okay. So with that in mind, definitely try out the core box first before you buy out all the expansions. I've truly enjoyed it. That's why I've got all expansions. So luckily I did enjoy every single expansion that was added to this game. You get so much content from all the characters already that I don't think you necessarily need the secret stash per se, but it definitely adds a lot of different modules if you want to play with just like the core box. That is my full extended review on Merchant's Cove. So thank you all so much for being here. Hope you all enjoy this game, have a great time with it, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Ooh, I see you. You're still here. If you are still here at the end card, comment down below. Let's think of a fun one. How about captains only? Yeah, that's a good one because the captain right now is like one of the most fun characters to play. 2 good games back to back. Refreshed.